A Spanish soldier is standing on a stone causeway stretching across a shallow lake. His name is Bernal Diaz del Castillo. He has fought in Cuba. He has fought in the Yucatan. He has seen jungle cities and coastal settlements, and nothing in his life has prepared him for what he is looking at. Rising from the center of the lake is a city larger than Seville, larger than Cordoba, white stone pyramids catching the morning light, causeways like the one he is standing on, radiating outward from the island in 3 directions, perfectly straight, wide enough for 10 horses to ride abreast. The lake itself is divided into grids, canals, chinampas, floating gardens arranged in geometric patterns that extend for miles, buildings stacked on buildings, temples rising above plazas, the water around the island shimmering with canoes, thousands of them, moving between the city and the lakeshore like insects on a pond. He will later write that he and the men with him thought they were dreaming, that it looked like the enchanted things they told of in the legend of Amadis, that they did not know if what they were seeing was real. The city is called Tenochtitlan. It holds between 200,000 and 300,000 people. No city in Europe at this moment holds that many. It was built on an island that did not exist until the Mexica made it exist, piling stone and earth and vegetation onto a swampy patch of Lake Texcoco until it could hold the foundations of an empire. The men staring at it have been marching inland from the coast for months. They number fewer than 400 Spaniards and several thousand Tlaxcalan allies who hate the Aztec Empire more than they fear the strangers with guns. The emperor who rules the city is named Montezuma. He has sent emissaries to meet Cortés on the road. He has sent gifts, gold, worked feathers, turquoise, objects so fine the Spanish do not understand how they were made. He has sent messages saying, "Do not come to the city." He has sent other messages saying, "Come, you are welcome." He has sent food and porters and guides. What he has not sent is an army to stop them. The Spanish are walking into the center of an empire that could have destroyed them at any point along the causeway and has chosen not to. Bernal Diaz will live long enough to see the city gone. He will see the lake drained, the pyramids demolished, the causeways turned into roads for Spanish carts. He will see the floating gardens rot and sink. He will write his account as an old man in Guatemala, trying to describe something the world never got to see complete, and he will die knowing he helped erase it. He does not know that yet. Right now, he is 23 years old and staring at a city that should not be possible. What he is looking at took 200 years to build and will take 93 days to destroy. The Aztec Empire in November 1519 is not a civilization in decline. It is the dominant military power in Mesoamerica, a tribute empire that extracts wealth, labor, and sacrificial victims from dozens of subordinate city-states. Its capital is an engineering achievement that has no European equivalent. Tenochtitlan sits in the middle of Lake Texcoco at an elevation of 7,300 feet, surrounded by mountains, sustained by aqueducts that carry fresh water from springs on the mainland across miles of lake on raised stone channels. The city has running water. It has public sanitation. It has markets that sell goods from 1,000 miles away, cacao from the south, obsidian from the volcanic regions, jaguar pelts, copper bells, feathers from birds that live in rainforests the Spanish have not yet seen. The city's layout reflects a cosmology the Spanish do not understand and will not survive long enough to be fully documented. The Templo Mayor, the Great Pyramid at the city's center, is oriented to the cardinal directions. The causeways align with sacred geography. The entire city is a representation of the Aztec understanding of the universe, a physical expression of their relationship with forces the Spanish will categorize as demons and mark for extermination. The Aztec Empire was not innocent. It was a militaristic tribute state that practiced human sacrifice on a scale that horrified even the Spanish, who were themselves not strangers to public executions. The subordinate cities that allied with Cortés did so because they hated their Aztec overlords. The Tlaxcalans burned Tenochtitlan with enthusiasm. This is not a story where the moral lines are clean. When Cortés and his men walk into the city on November 8th, 1519, they are met by Montezuma himself. The emperor is carried on a litter. He steps down onto a path of cloth so his feet do not touch the ground. Nobles around him avert their eyes. Cortés dismounts and attempts to embrace him. The nobles physically block this. Montezuma gives Cortés a necklace of golden shrimp and colored shells. Cortés gives Montezuma a necklace of glass beads and pearls strung on a cord scented with musk. Both men are performing diplomacy according to rules the other does not fully comprehend. The Spanish are given quarters in the palace of Axayacatl, Montezuma's father, near the center of the city. It is large enough to house all of them and their Tlaxcalan allies. That night, they find a sealed doorway. They break it open. Behind it is a room filled with gold, worked gold, ritual gold, treasure accumulated over generations. Cortés orders the door sealed again. He has just been shown that he is standing in the center of wealth beyond anything he imagined, and he is outnumbered by a conservative estimate of 500 to 1. Montezuma's decision to allow the Spanish into the city is one history has argued about for 5 centuries. Some accounts claim he believed Cortés might be the god Quetzalcoatl returned, a prophecy involving a bearded figure arriving from the east. Other accounts suggest this was a later invention, that Montezuma was engaged in careful diplomatic maneuvering, trying to assess what these strangers wanted and whether they could be controlled. The Aztec Empire functioned through a combination of military dominance and tributary relationships. Montezuma may have been attempting to integrate the Spanish into that system, to make them subordinate allies rather than enemies. What is certain is that he miscalculated. Within a week of entering the city, Cortés takes Montezuma hostage. The emperor continues to govern, continues to appear in public, but he is living in Spanish quarters under Spanish guard. Cortés's justification is that Montezuma ordered an attack on Spanish soldiers on the coast. Montezuma denies this. It does not matter. He is a prisoner. For 6 months the situation holds. Montezuma governs his empire from captivity. The Spanish live inside the city, guests who have become jailers, walking the streets and studying the defenses. Cortés sends men to explore the causeways, to map the canals, to understand how the city connects to the lake and the mainland. Bernal Diaz describes climbing the Templo Mayor with Cortés and Montezuma, standing at the top and looking across the lake at the cities on the distant shore, the mountains beyond them, the whole valley of Mexico spread below. He describes the marketplace at Tlatelolco, the northern section of the city, where 60,000 people come to trade on a single day. He describes the order of it: sections for gold, for silver, for jewels, for feathers, for slaves, for cacao, for cotton, for pottery, for animals. He describes the court system that operates within the market: 3 judges who hear disputes and render verdicts on the spot. He describes the cleanliness of the streets, the sanitation systems, the fact that there are public latrines and men employed to keep them clean. He is describing infrastructure that will not be matched in Europe for another 300 years. In April 1520, Cortés learns that a Spanish fleet has landed on the coast. It is not a friendly fleet. It has been sent by the governor of Cuba to arrest him. Cortés is operating without authorization from the Spanish crown. He is, by the legal standards of the time, an outlaw leading an unauthorized military expedition. He leaves Tenochtitlan with most of his men and marches to the coast to confront the fleet. He leaves behind approximately 80 Spaniards under the command of Pedro de Alvarado. Alvarado is not a diplomat. In May, during the festival of Toxcatl, while hundreds of Aztec nobles are performing a religious dance in the courtyard of the Templo Mayor, unarmed, in ceremonial dress, Alvarado orders his men to seal the exits and begin killing. The massacre lasts for hours. The exact number of dead is not recorded. The Spanish accounts claim they believed the festival was cover for an attack. The Aztec accounts describe unarmed men and women cut down while dancing, their blood pooling on the stones, their bodies piled in the courtyard. The city rises. The Spanish retreat to their quarters. The Aztecs cut the causeways and stop the aqueducts. No food enters. No water enters. Montezuma appears on the palace roof to address the crowd. He is shouted down. Some accounts say he is struck by a stone thrown from the crowd. Others say the Spanish wounded him. He dies 3 days later. Cortés returns to find the city in revolt and his men besieged. He has fought his way back across hostile territory. He has integrated the soldiers from the coastal fleet into his force. He has perhaps 1,300 Spaniards now and several thousand Tlaxcalan allies. It is not enough. The causeways are breached. The bridges are gone. The city that welcomed him 7 months ago wants him dead. He attempts to negotiate. The Aztecs refuse. They have a new leader, Cuitlahua, Montezuma's brother, a military commander who spent the months of Montezuma's captivity preparing for this. The Spanish are trapped. They cannot stay, and they cannot leave. Cortés decides to leave. On the night of June 30th, 1520, the Spanish attempt to escape across the western causeway in darkness and silence. They build a portable bridge to cross the gaps where the causeway has been cut. They move in the rain. They are discovered. What happens next? Bernal Diaz will describe as the saddest night of his life. The causeway becomes a killing ground. Thousands of Aztec warriors attack from canoes on both sides. The portable bridge jams in the gap and cannot be moved. Men try to swim in armor and drown. Men weighed down with gold they took from Axayacatl's palace step into the water and do not come back up. The causeway is narrow, 3 or 4 men wide in places, and it is packed with Spanish soldiers, Tlaxcalan allies, horses, artillery, all of it trying to move forward in darkness while warriors in canoes hurl spears and fire arrows into the mass of bodies. The fighting lasts all night. By dawn, Cortés has reached the mainland. He has lost approximately 400 Spaniards. He has lost 4,000 Tlaxcalan allies. He has lost all of his artillery, all of his gunpowder, most of his horses, and nearly all of the gold. He sits under a tree on the shore of the lake and weeps. The tree will later be marked as the Árbol de la Noche Triste, the tree of the sad night. Behind him across the water, Tenochtitlan still stands. Cuitlahua has driven the Spanish out. The city has won. It has 70 days before the smallpox arrives. The disease enters through the Tlaxcalan allies who survived the causeway. It spreads through the city in weeks. The Aztecs have no immunity, no framework for understanding what is happening, no treatment that works. The mortality rate in the first wave is estimated between 30 and 50%. Cuitlahua organizes the resistance, fortifies the causeways, prepares for the Spanish to return, and then he dies. The empire needs a new emperor. His name is Cuauhtémoc. He is 25 years old. He inherits a city half empty with corpses and a war he cannot win, and he refuses to surrender it. Cortés was already preparing to return. Tomorrow was 12 hours away. Stick around until the end, and subscribe if this is your kind of history. Inside Tenochtitlan in the winter of 1520, nobody is preparing for peace. Cuauhtémoc is the son of the Emperor Ahuitzotl and nephew of Montezuma. He was a military commander before the Spanish arrived. He opposed Montezuma's decision to allow Cortés into the city. He opposed the policy of treating the Spanish as guests rather than invaders. Now he is emperor of a city that has just survived both a military siege and a plague, and he knows the Spanish are coming back. Cortés is in Tlaxcala, rebuilding. The Tlaxcalans are the Aztec Empire's oldest enemies, a city-state that has resisted Aztec domination for decades through a combination of military effectiveness and strategic location in defensible mountains. Cortés's alliance with them is the foundation of everything he will do next. Without Tlaxcalan porters, guides, warriors, and food supplies, the Spanish expedition ends on the causeway in June. With them, Cortés has access to thousands of soldiers who want Tenochtitlan destroyed as much as he wants it conquered. He also has a plan that should not be possible. He is building ships, 13 brigantines, large enough to carry 25 men each, armed with cannon, designed to operate on Lake Texcoco. He is building them in Tlaxcala, 60 miles from the lake, in pieces. The timber is cut in the mountains. The hulls are constructed in sections. The sails, rigging, and iron fittings are salvaged or fabricated. When complete, the ships will be disassembled and carried in pieces by 8,000 Tlaxcalan porters across the mountains to Texcoco on the eastern shore of the lake, where they will be reassembled and launched. It takes 4 months. The ships are launched in April 1521. Cortés now controls the lake. The causeways connected Tenochtitlan to the mainland, but the lake sustained it. Food arrived by canoe. The chinampas, the floating gardens, required constant maintenance from the water. The aqueducts brought fresh water from the mainland, but they could be cut. The city's greatest defensive advantage was that it could not be surrounded on land. Cortés has just removed that advantage. The siege begins in May. Cortés divides his force into 3 columns, 1 for each causeway. Each column includes Spanish soldiers, artillery, and thousands of Tlaxcalan and other allied warriors. The plan is simple. Advance along the causeways. Fill in the gaps where the bridges have been destroyed. fight building by building into the city, and force Cuauhtémoc to surrender. The brigantines patrol the lake, preventing canoes from resupplying the city and engaging Aztec war canoes when they attempt to interfere with the causeway assaults. Cuauhtémoc's strategy is equally simple. Make every street cost more than it is worth. The Aztecs have spent the winter fortifying the city. Barricades block the causeways. Canals that run perpendicular to the Spanish advance have been widened and deepened. Buildings near the causeways have been converted into firing positions. The Spanish have guns, but the Aztecs have obsidian-edged weapons, numerical superiority, and the advantage of fighting in a city they know intimately. The first assaults in May gain perhaps 100 yards per day. The Spanish advance, fight hand-to-hand in the streets, take a barricade, lose men to ambush, and then retreat at nightfall to the base of the causeway. When they return the next morning, the barricades have been rebuilt. The canals they filled in have been reopened. The Aztecs have worked through the night to undo the previous days. Progress. Cortés orders his men to stop retreating, to hold the ground they take, to sleep in the streets, to maintain pressure. The fighting becomes continuous. Bernal Diaz describes the sound, drums and conch-shell trumpets from the Templo Mayor echoing across the lake, war cries from the rooftops, the smell of smoke and gunpowder mixing with the smell of the canals, which are beginning to fill with bodies. He describes the Spanish soldiers sleeping in captured buildings, setting guards, waking to the sound of another assault in darkness. The aqueducts are cut in the first weeks. The fresh water supply stops. Tenochtitlan is surrounded by a lake, but Lake Texcoco is brackish, undrinkable. The Aztecs dig wells, but the water that close to the lake is contaminated. They ration. They collect rainwater. The city that had running water superior to anything in Europe is dying of thirst. By June, the Spanish have fought perhaps a third of the way into the city along each causeway. The Aztecs are no longer just defending, they are counter-attacking. Spanish soldiers are captured in the street fighting, dragged back into the city, and sacrificed on the Templo Mayor in view of the Spanish lines. Bernal Diaz will write that they could see it happening, that they could hear their comrades screaming, see the priests cutting them open on the sacrificial stone, see the bodies thrown down the pyramid steps. The Aztecs display the heads on the skull racks. They throw the bodies of dead Spanish soldiers and horses into the canals, where the Spanish will have to see them, will have to smell them decomposing in the summer heat. Cortés attempts negotiation. He sends messages offering terms. Cuauhtémoc ignores them. The Spanish advance continues. The Tlaxcalan allies burn every building they capture. Cortés initially tries to preserve the city. He wants to conquer it, not destroy it, but he cannot control the pace of destruction. The Tlaxcalans have waited decades for this. They are not interested in preserving Tenochtitlan. In mid-June, the Spanish suffer a reversal they do not anticipate. Cortés personally leads an assault too deep into the city. His column advances past a canal they have not adequately secured. The Aztecs open a gap behind them, flooding the street they used to advance. Cortés's force is cut off, surrounded, fighting on three sides. The Aztecs capture 53 Spanish soldiers and 8 horses. Cortés barely escapes. That night, the drums sound from the Templo Mayor. The captured Spanish are sacrificed where the entire city can see. The sacrifices are meant to demonstrate that Cuauhtémoc's gods have not abandoned him, that Huitzilopochtli still demands and receives blood, that the Spanish are not invincible. The psychological effect on the Aztec defenders is significant. Morale stabilizes. Resistance hardens. For approximately a week, Cuauhtémoc achieves what might be called a tactical stalemate. The Spanish are still, advancing but slowly, at high cost and with no guarantee of success. The stalemate does not hold. The city is starving. The fighting has lasted 6 weeks. The bodies in the canals are spreading disease. The population that survived the smallpox is dying of hunger, thirst, and wounds that cannot be treated. The Aztecs begin launching night raids across the lake in canoes, desperate attempts to secure food from the mainland. The brigantines intercept most of them. A few get through. It is not enough. Cuauhtémoc sends emissaries to the cities on the lakeshore, calling for reinforcements, promising that the Aztec Empire will prevail if they rise against the Spanish. Most of those cities have already allied with Cortés, or are remaining neutral, waiting to see who wins. The empire that once extracted tribute from hundreds of subordinate states cannot call on them now. The subject peoples are not rushing to defend their overlords. By early July, the Spanish have penetrated the city far, enough to reach the Tlatelolco marketplace, the great northern market Bernal Diaz described when he first arrived. It is empty. The stalls are abandoned. The plaza where 60,000 people once traded is silent. The Spanish burn it. The Aztecs retreat into the remaining quarter of the city, the final defensive zone around the Templo Mayor. The population, what is left of it, compresses into a smaller and smaller area. The streets are packed with refugees, wounded warriors, civilians with nowhere to go. The canals in this section are clogged with bodies. The smell, by Bernal Diaz's account, is unbearable. Spanish soldiers wear cloth soaked in vinegar over their faces. It does not help. Each refusal to negotiate cost the civilians compressed into the final district another week of starvation, dying of thirst, surrounded by the unburied dead. The final assault on the Templo Mayor begins in late July. The pyramid is defended by warriors who know they are going to die. The fighting on the steps lasts hours. The Spanish take the summit. Cortés orders the temples torn down. The stones are thrown into the plaza below. The great twin shrines to Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc, the center of Aztec religious and political life, are demolished in a single afternoon. The city is dying on its feet. By August, the siege has lasted 93 days. The Aztec defenders are drinking from the canals despite the bodies. They are eating bark, leather, anything. The Spanish estimates of Aztec dead range from 100,000 to 240,000, though accurate counts are impossible. The number includes civilians, warriors, and victims of disease and starvation. The city that held 300,000 people in November 1519 now holds perhaps 50,000, most of them starving. Cuauhtémoc prepares to escape. On August 13th, 1521, he boards a canoe with his wife, his advisors, and a small guard. The plan is to reach the mainland, regroup, continue, resistance from outside the city. The brigantines intercept the canoe within sight of the shore. He is captured without a fight. He is brought to Cortés. According to multiple Spanish accounts, including Bernal Diaz, the first thing Cuauhtémoc says is a request. He asks Cortés to kill him. He has a dagger on his belt. He points to it. He tells Cortés to use it. Cortés refuses. The emperor who refused to surrender a dying city is 25 years old and standing on a Spanish ship in the middle of a lake that is filling with bodies. He has just asked his captor to end his life and been told no. The city behind him is no longer a city in any functional sense. It is a mass grave with streets, an architectural corpse, a place where the smell of decomposition is so pervasive that Cortés will later order the entire civilian population evacuated because his own men cannot physically tolerate staying inside the ruins. Cuauhtémoc's capture ends the organized resistance, the Aztec. Warriors who remain lay down their weapons. The Spanish and their Tlaxcalan allies enter the final quarter of the city and begin the occupation. What they find is difficult to convey in language that does not collapse into abstraction. Bernal Diaz, who has described battles across the Caribbean and the mainland with precise detail, struggles here. He writes that the streets were so packed with dead that you could not walk without stepping on bodies, that the canals were so clogged that the water no longer moved, that the surviving population was emaciated beyond recognition, that people looked like skeletons, that the Spanish could not tell the living from the recently dead at a distance. The city is evacuated over the course of a week. The survivors, estimates range from 50 to 70,000, are allowed to leave across the causeways. The Spanish do not have food to feed them. They do not have infrastructure to manage that many people. The refugees disperse into the countryside, carrying typhus and smallpox with them. The diseases spread through the Valley of Mexico, then outward. Over the next 80 years, the population of central Mexico will decline from approximately 25 million to 1 million. Not all of that is disease. Much of it is disease. The conquest of Mexico is demographic collapse, wearing a steel breastplate. Cortés wants the gold. The Spanish searched Tenochtitlan during the siege. They found tribute warehouses, food stores, armories, but they did not find the treasure room from Axayacatl's palace, the gold the Spanish loaded onto their backs the night of the causeway retreat, the gold most of them dropped into the lake while drowning. Cortés believes Cuauhtémoc knows where the gold is. Cuauhtémoc either does not know or will not say. Cortés has Cuauhtémoc tortured. The method is burning, feet held over hot coals. One of Cuauhtémoc's captains is tortured beside him. According to the account recorded by Bernal, Diaz, the captain, begins to scream and looks at Cuauhtémoc as if asking for permission to speak. Cuauhtémoc says, "Am I lying on a bed of roses?" The captain says nothing. Neither of them provide information the Spanish consider useful. Cortés eventually stops the torture. Some of the gold is recovered from the lake by divers over the following months. Most of it is never found. Cuauhtémoc is kept alive as a prisoner. His value to Cortés is symbolic, the living embodiment of Aztec surrender, proof that the empire has accepted Spanish dominance. Cortés parades him through the Valley of Mexico during the consolidation campaigns. Other cities see their emperor in chains and submit without fighting. Cuauhtémoc lives 4 more years as Cortés's prisoner. In 1525, Cortés leads an expedition to Honduras to put down a rebellion among the Spanish settlers there. He brings Cuauhtémoc with him, along with other Aztec nobles, presumably because he does not trust leaving them in Mexico City unsupervised. The expedition is a disaster. Months of marching through jungle, inadequate supplies, men dying of disease and hunger. Cortés becomes paranoid. He hears rumors that the Aztec nobles are plotting rebellion, planning to kill the Spanish and escape. There is no evidence the plot is real. Bernal Diaz, who is present on the expedition, will later write that he believed the accusations were false, that Cortés was hearing conspiracy in every conversation because the expedition was failing and he needed someone to blame. On February 28, 1525, in a village somewhere in the jungle between Mexico and Honduras, Cortés has Cuauhtémoc hanged. The other Aztec nobles are hanged with him. No trial, no formal charges. Cortés orders it, and it is done. Cuauhtémoc dies at approximately 29 years old. He was emperor for 18 months. He inherited a city already hollowed by disease. He refused to surrender it. He fought street by street through the ruins of his own civilization. When captured, he asked to be killed and was refused. He was tortured, paraded as proof of conquest, and then executed in a jungle 1,000 miles from home on suspicion of a plot that probably did not exist. Bernal Diaz will write that Cuauhtémoc's death was unjust, that many of the Spanish believed Cortés had made a mistake, that the execution served no purpose except to eliminate a man Cortés had decided was dangerous. The body is buried somewhere in the jungle. The location is not recorded. 400 years later, the Mexican government will declare Cuauhtémoc a national hero, the last defender of indigenous sovereignty. His bones are never found. August 13th, 1521, is the day Cuauhtémoc is captured and the siege ends. It is also the day the city stops being Tenochtitlan. What happens over the next decade is not reconstruction, it is replacement. The Spanish do not repair the aqueducts. They do not restore the causeways to their original function. They do not preserve the temples or the palaces or the great marketplace. They systematically erase the physical city and build something new on the footprint. The cathedral rises on the exact site of the Templo Mayor. The foundation is Aztec stone. The walls are Aztec stone. The labor is performed by Aztec workers. The symbolism is deliberate. The new god is being installed in the house of the old gods, using the bodies of the people who worshipped there. The first mass is celebrated in 1525. The building is not completed for another 300 years. It is still standing. The National Palace, the seat of Mexican government, is built on the site of Montezuma's palace. Cortés lives there for a time. The Spanish viceroys live there. After Mexican independence in 1821, the Mexican presidents lived there. The building has been destroyed and rebuilt multiple times, always on the same site, always on Aztec foundations. The ground remembers what stood there, even if the architecture does not. The lake is drained incrementally. It begins as flood control and becomes policy. By the 20th century, Lake Texcoco is almost entirely gone, reduced to a few shallow remnant pools on the outskirts of the city. Mexico City is now one of the largest metropolitan areas in the world, with a population exceeding 20 million, built on land that used to be underwater. The ground is unstable. The city sinks a few inches every year. Buildings tilt. The cathedral has sunk more than 10 feet into the soft lake bed since it was built. The city that was destroyed because it was built on a lake has been replaced by a city sinking into the ghost of that lake. Cortés does not stay in Mexico. He returns to Spain in 1540, wealthy, but not as wealthy as he believes he deserves. He petitioned the crown for greater titles, more land, formal recognition as the conqueror of New Spain. He receives some of this, not enough. He spends his final years writing letters to the king, asking for what he believes he is owed. He dies in 1547 near Seville, age 62, still convinced he has been inadequately rewarded for what he accomplished. His body is moved multiple times, buried and reburied in Spain and Mexico, until finally interred in Mexico City, in a church built on the ruins of a city he destroyed. The location of his bones is intentionally unmarked. He wanted to be remembered as the man who conquered an empire. History remembers him as the man who burned the maps. Bernal Díaz del Castillo finishes his account in Guatemala in the 1560s, 40 years after the siege. He is old. He is writing partly to correct other histories he believes are inaccurate, partly to secure recognition for the common soldiers who fought alongside Cortés and received no credit, partly because he knows he saw something no one will see again. His description of Tenochtitlan in 1519 is the most detailed eyewitness account that survives. He describes the causeways, the markets, the temples, the canals. He describes the city as it appeared the first time he saw it, rising from the lake, impossibly large, impossibly organized, a place that seemed like something from a legend. He also describes watching it burn. He describes the final assault. He describes the bodies in the streets, and the smell and the sound of the buildings collapsing as the Spanish and Tlaxcalans tore them down. He describes the evacuated survivors, skeletal, silent, walking across the causeway into exile. He writes that he has seen many cities in his life and Tenochtitlan was the greatest, and that he and the men with him destroyed it, and that no one alive when he is writing has ever seen what he saw because it no longer exists. The question of what was lost is not abstract. It is catalogable. The knowledge to construct chinampas at scale, gone. The engineering principles that allowed a city of 300,000 to function on an artificial island with running water and functional sanitation in 1519, gone. The astronomical records, gone. The medical texts, gone. The historical records, the king lists, the tribute accounts, the administrative documents that detailed how an empire actually functioned, almost entirely gone. 15 codices survive from all of Mesoamerica, 15 books. Everything else is ash or was decomposed by humidity in the decades when no one thought to preserve them because the Spanish did not recognize them as valuable. The language survives in modified form. Nahuatl is still spoken by approximately 1.7 million people, mostly in rural Mexico, but the specialized vocabulary is gone. The technical terms for urban planning, hydraulic engineering, astronomy, architecture, those were held by specialists, and when the specialists died without passing the knowledge to a new generation, the words died with them. You cannot reconstruct a floating garden from a Nahuatl dictionary compiled by Spanish friars in 1571. The dictionary does not contain the vocabulary because the friars did not know to ask about it, and the surviving speakers did not know how to explain something they had never built themselves. Tenochtitlan, in 1519, was not a primitive settlement waiting for European civilization to improve it. It was a different answer to the question of what a city can be. It was a model of urban life built on principles the Spanish did not understand and did not bother to learn because they had already decided the answers their own civilization had developed were the only correct ones. When they destroyed the city, they destroyed the evidence of the alternative. They built Mexico City on top of it and called the project Progress. And in a narrow sense, they were correct. Mexico City is a success. It has survived 5 centuries. It is enormous, influential, culturally rich. It is also sinking into a drained lake bed because the Spanish never learned the hydrology that made Tenochtitlan possible. But the destruction of the city was not a tactical necessity. It was a choice. Cortés initially wanted to preserve Tenochtitlan, to conquer it and rule from it. The burning happened because he could not control his allies and because the siege lasted long enough that preservation stopped being an option. The knowledge was destroyed because the Spanish did not recognize it as knowledge. The codices were burned because the friars believed they were demonic. The specialists died because the diseases killed them, or because they were worked to death in the encomienda system, or because they were old when the conquest happened, and there was no longer a city or a temple or a school where they could pass their knowledge to students. Cuauhtémoc understood what was at stake. He refused every offer to surrender because surrender meant the end not just of the empire, but of the world the empire represented. He was correct. The world ended. The lake was drained. The temples were demolished. The floating gardens sank. The causeways became roads. The new city rose on the bones of the old one, and within a generation, no one remembered how to build what had been destroyed. History has argued for 500 years about whether Cortés conquered a civilization or destroyed one. Both of those things were true simultaneously. He conquered an empire and destroyed the knowledge base that made it function. He built a new city on the ruins and called it New Spain. The city he built is still there. It is one of the largest in the world. It has art, culture, universities, museums. It also has a cathedral built from the stones of a temple to a god the Spanish categorized as a demon, and it is sinking a few inches every year into the lake that used to be there. Bernal Diaz stood on the causeway in 1519 and could not find words for what he was seeing. The men who had no words for it spent 2 years making sure no one would ever have to find them again. If this story stayed with you, leave a comment below. Was Cuauhtémoc's refusal to surrender the only choice that preserved something? Or did it cost tens of thousands of lives for a city that was already gone? And does it change how you see the conquest, knowing that the men who destroyed Tenochtitlan could not find words for what they were looking at? History has been arguing about it for 5 centuries. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories like this one.